So now let's have a look at the diversity, equity, inclusion example of Australia and why the right side of politics are calling it a DEI hire. And this one we're just gonna check and have a look, and I'll discuss it as they go by. This is related to Senator Payman. Okay, I did mention her, but we will be going towards the video of an interview that she did as well. Just do you guys have a clip and some idea about, and you can judge for yourself whether you think what the Republican are going about, whether there's some truth in it. As a person from that diverse background, and I can 100% say yes, they are justified to use that term. However, for Kamala Harris, she's very experienced, but she, in that role where she was at the moment before Joe Biden announced that he is no longer going to be running for president, because everybody could see it that he is actually losing his cognitive skills, no longer run as a president. But Kamala Harris, during this time as a vice president, she was used by that left side of American politics as actually the token. She was the gatekeeper and a token. So when they go about diversity, equity, inclusion higher, it is from that is the weaponization. Diversity, equity, inclusion, it's really good thing. It's not about whether it's bad. It's just a look at how they're using that as a weapon for the benefit themselves. And people who are put in those positions, they either stay and become that token, or they resign. There are only two options. Many of them do resign, and we see that a lot now with a lot of people from multicultural Australia who are moving away from the traditional workforce. And that is actually has to do with this concept. This concept you can see in Parliament. If it can happen in Parliament, you better be sure that it's happening every day in the workplace.
I thought it was very weak. I think Albo's made a mistake on this. Hasn't this critique been proven right? That Mr Albanese's response was weak and has been proven to be a giant mistake, given the Prime Minister hasn't been able to convince his own party to take his authority seriously and has been so comprehensively outplayed by Senator Payman. How can anyone else be expected to take him seriously?
Yeah, that's Senator Payman. Yeah, she sits there by herself in Parliament.
Kenzie, order. Senators, order across the chamber. Senator McKenzie, order. Senator Hanson-Young, I've called order. Senator McKenzie, order. Minister Wong.
Thank you, Senator. What I would say to you is...
So they now they're calling Penny Wong. She is being used in this scenario here as a gatekeeper for the Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister has acted always to advance the cause of Labor and to ensure that the government's agenda continues to be implemented. But I want to make I want to respond on the point about collective decision making.
Yes, you can see that everyone is agreeing with her, because she is been brought forward to do one thing. Her role there is to be the gatekeeper, and because she comes from that diversity background, yes, and she's also been weaponized against the fellow senator, Senator Payman. Okay. Be smart.
We believe on this side of the chamber that collective decision making is about the group being more powerful, more wise than any one individual. And I would say to this chamber that that truth is demonstrated by the history of this nation. The progress that Labor has delivered on Medicare, minimum wage, social welfare, paid parental leave, superannuation, the Sex Discrimination Act, the Racial Discrimination Act, the abolition of the White Australia policy, Mabo, land rights, and the removal of discrimination against LGBT Australians.
The time.
Yeah, she comes over there and mentioned all of those things that Australians have removed that were discriminatory against people of colour, especially, I don't want to use colour, against black people in general. Remember, Australia had a white Australia policy, so that was the policy they had. So she is pointing out all of that, trying to minimize Senator Payman's view about this issue. Why she's bringing that? Because they're not really discussing that, isn't it? They're discussing issue of, it's very unique, about a human rights issue they're discussing here, about what's going on in Palestine. Okay, so that's the human rights issue they're discussing, but while we're bringing in things that are much more around diversity and stuff that Labor has contributed to it, because that is the weapon that is being used in this scenario here. So it's been effectively being weaponized for her background, her diversity, and against her fellow senator Fatima Payman, who is coming from diverse background. That is so common. Tell you that it is absolutely common within the Australian society. This scenario here, it is not when I could say that, it is not a single event that just say, you could say, oh, it just happened in Parliament. No, it's not. It's common everywhere, mostly in the workplace. You see that. You would have that person that was like Penny Wong, and you'll have a person like Fatima Payman. And often people who are very like Fatima Payman, who have their own, who come across with their own identity, their own views and idea how to do things, and they put it into this workplace that still work in the colonial laws and rules, which is i.e. the Labor Party, and they either going to toe the line and become unrecognizable, just like Kamala Harris wasn't recognizable until about 7 days ago, I can't count, but or they would either reject that and actually have a voice of dissent around certain issues and stay and then resign from that position. So that's how it works. That is the diversity. That's the Australian diversity and multiculturalism that they tout a lot about. That when you look at it, you see that most people in these workplaces who are diverse, they belong to those two groups that I've just mentioned, and there is now a decoupling around people moving away from these traditional workplaces, whereby people are forced to be either toe the line, or if they're on toe line, they will need to resign. So if you like your career, you like your role, you wouldn't want to do that. You would want to consider if you can use your skills elsewhere. And we're seeing a lot of people moving the traditional workforce, traditional places, and looking at opportunity mainly around online. So I did say to you guys that online businesses are an equity equalizer, because you're really not going, nobody's gonna be there and be bothering you and doing stuff and forcing you to agree to things that you don't consciously believe in. Nobody's gonna force you to do that. You choose what you're gonna do. You can still earn the same income or even more, because you've chosen to move away from that traditional workplaces and create something that is for you, that is going to allow you to thrive. The most important thing is to thrive, not just survive, but to thrive. So yeah, it's a lot of decoupling happening around Australian workforce, and constantly there is this revolving need for skilled workers, because people who are skilled don't stay in those roles for longer. They don't, because constantly they either going to be forced to toe the line, or they either going to quit. Most of them do quit. After they can tolerate the towing the line, they can toe the line until you figure out what you're going to do, because nobody can survive under these circumstances for a long time. You can survive for a short time, depending how what's your conviction. Someone like Senator Fatima Payman, she wouldn't. We know that she wouldn't. Okay, so some people can tolerate to become the help, and they stay there as help, and they do not move anywhere with their careers, because they need to be the doorkeeper, they need to be the keeper, the gatekeeper. If you're a gatekeeper, you're really not going to learn anything. You're not going to see any career growth, because that's what you are. You are a gatekeeper. A company might hire someone who is diverse because they want to attract certain clients to come to them, but then they don't change their policy and procedure to accommodate those clients, to meet the diversity of those clients they're trying to attract. When those clients come in and they're not being provided with the services that they would otherwise need and deserve, because they're diverse, and because even if they have the diverse staff who meets the criteria, because the policy, the way in which the service is provided in the first place, doesn't meet that type of clients that are coming to that services. So if you do not look into that, that also can be a problem, for even from the customer's perspective, because you want to come into a services, you're expecting to the staff and everyone that it's in that services to be trained and to have enough resources to be able to provide a cultural appropriate services for you. If the cultural appropriate services for you is not based on a fundamental policy and procedure that allows you to enjoy the services you're receiving, you likely not enjoy going to that service. You will go and look for another service provider, because you are feeling, even though that service provider you went to, they still had people who are gatekeeper in there, because that's what they are, gatekeeper, but everything still remain colonial. Everything in there, just nothing changed. It's just that the face changed. The term DEI hire that the Republican were talking about is based on this principle here. That's what they're saying about it. They're saying it, and it's real. It's real. It's not some kind of a lie. Oh no, DEI, they're talking about her race, so let's go for them. No, it is a serious thing that I have experienced it. I'm diverse, so I can speak about it. It is the truth. It is the truth. Okay? So now we're gonna move to another story here about her Senator Payman. Now she's going to explain exactly from her words what was it like for her to be in the Labour ticket. Okay? Let's listen to the next one.